good news for pet owners. Well, is it? I'm not sure. I'm still not sure whether this is a good use of government time. But hey, joining me on the program, somebody who's definitely got an opinion on this and most things, Tash McGill. Tash, kia ora. Good morning. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you too. That's what they call me, Tash McGill, the walking opinion.
It's a compliment. Lean in. It's a good thing.
Oh, I lean in the same way that I say I'm grounded because I'm only 5'2".
Well, exactly. Rock what you got. Now, first question has to be cat person or dog person, Tash? Pick a team.
Oh, look, I'm absolutely both. I love dogs, absolute dog lover,
Yeah.
and I love cats so long as they act like dogs.
You're a dog person. Okay. So do you have pets at home or introduce us to
No,
No, you don't. Okay.
no, I'm a renter.
I see.
So I don't have pets. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, really. Who would ever thought I'd be saying this? David Seymour to your rescue, Tash. Because there's some new legislation which means that renters like you could have a menagerie of pets, cats that act like dogs and dogs. If you pay a special bond, so they can take even more money off you if there's a small mark on the wallpaper. Isn't this good news, right?
Well, I would just suggest that to everybody who's got a friendly landlord, perhaps now's the time to renegotiate before this law passes. But honestly, so here's my thinking on this, and I'm kind of split both ways because I think if you're somebody like me, who actually and we've talked about this before at length, and perhaps we should dive into it again, but I fundamentally don't really believe that purchasing property is necessarily the best way for New Zealanders like myself to move forward and to think about how we plan for our future. And that's because largely our property values are actually overinflated, and the equivalent of annual salary to what it costs to buy a house is so disproportionate that it actually doesn't really make sense. You'd be better to put that same amount of money, into a high yield savings account or perhaps into some other investments, depending on which way you sit. For me, that's where I sit. So, I kind of have always thought, well, pets probably not really on the cards for me unless I find that wealthy husband,
Yeah, exactly. Now,
who already has property.
To be fair, you can blame your nasty landlord. I'm sure you've got a very nice landlord, Tash, but
my landlord's amazing.
Shout out to Tasha's landlord, see if you get a reduction on that. But also, to be fair, you do travel quite a bit. And that would be another reason why it might be awkward to have pets because, oh, gosh, who's going to look after the cat that feels like it's a dog and all that type of stuff.
All that kind of stuff. But I tell you what, here's the thing. Whilst pets do not necessarily make sense for my lifestyle, I absolutely think that people should be entitled to have pets if they can do so in a reasonable way. And I do think this idea that you'll let a human being, perhaps even a human being with children who honestly are more destructive. If you give those kids a marker or a felt tip pen, they are more likely to destroy the walls of your rental property than somebody's well-trained dog. So I kind of sit both ways. I think the most interesting thing in this whole kind of argument, though, two pieces. One, I am waiting for people to come out of the woodwork with their judgmental hats on saying that if you can't afford to buy a house, then you shouldn't be spending money on a pet.
Wow.
That's what I'm waiting for, right?
Exactly.
I'm waiting for people who still are locked in that paradigm that owning a house is the most and only priority for the Kiwi dream, because I think those days are long behind us and off we go. But the second thing that I think is really interesting is just how come this has made it through the priority list? Like, I'm confused, right?
Of all the problems in the world today, the one that ACT Party policy needed I mean, to be fair, they campaigned on it, and it is literally a warm, fluffy type policy, really, isn't it?
And
the maybe,
well, especially if you've seen the size of the dog that David Seymour included in his video about it.
Exactly.
That's a big, warm, fluffy dog.
It is, exactly.
And I do think we should celebrate when politicians are people of their word, right? So some ticks there, absolutely, delivering what they say that they're going to deliver. But I am confused in a week where, once again, big job cuts being announced to Oranga Tamariki, houses on the chopping block to be sold from Kaianga Ora. and this is what we're talking about. Really?
As a spokesperson, though, of Generation Rent, come on, represent renters such as yourself. How much business is it, whether or not people have got cats or dogs, whether or not they've got children, whether or not they're smokers or non-smokers, whether or not they're gay or straight, whether or not their lifestyle measures up with the idea of the landlord's imagination of what an ideal tenant looks like? Should that be anybody's business? Should landlords have an absolute veto on who rents their house and who doesn't?
Look, I personally don't believe that they should. I think the idea that that landlords should have absolute veto or control over some of those things, in the same way that I think it's a little bit ridiculous when a body corporate says, no, you can't have pets in this apartment building, or or if you live in a gated community with a body corp, and then they say, no, you absolutely can't have a garden shed. I mean, kind of the territorial politicking that people get up to in terms of their desire to control their context and their environment is ridiculous. And I have often thought that the idea that it's okay the idea that landlords might discriminate on any potential tenant on the basis of their race, their gender, whether or not they have children, whether or not they have pets, I think is a little bit ridiculous. But here's why. It's because landlords are in the business of controlling and managing the value and the care of assets. And again, it comes back to, if we as a community, and we do look at housing as an asset, we look at it as an investment asset that is all about gaining value and making money, and we don't have human interests at the core of it. So that's why, once again, I'm all for turning the whole thing upside down.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there'll be a lot of people listening to this that would say yes and amen to body corporates being a lot worse than landlords in terms of the hoops that you need to jump through, and let that be a lesson to all of us. So I mean, an interesting step to take, an interesting priority for the government to have whilst they're on recess at the moment. I don't know, perhaps it's a slow political week. I mean, even the Prime Minister's gone on holiday to the Philippines. However, is this a step in a positive direction, or do you think just something that didn't need to be done?
Well, it is that balance of, I appreciate any step that we take towards libertarianism. I think that that's actually a positive thing, right? Which is, hey, you want to have a pet? Cool, the responsibility is on you. So I do think that that's a positive step. I think it's a positive indication. Do I think that, once again, this coalition government opens themselves up to all manner of critique and ridicule by choosing the big fluffy dogs? Perhaps.
Hey, very much appreciate your opinion as always. Tasha, pleasure to chat. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.